Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to the webinar on why clarity of thinking in communication matters in accounting outsourcing for chartered accountants in practice. At the outset, we extend our heartfelt welcome to our chairman, CA Madhukar Hirgange sir, of the committee, whose vision and leadership continue to empower members in practice with the new opportunities and learning platforms. Sir, I request you to please take the welcome and the opening remarks of the webinar.
Thank you, Priyanshu. Uh, this uh, this particular session is one of the first sessions towards improving the skills which have become more and more important over periods of time. If I wish to provide my services to the MNCs in India, or if I wish to provide my services to corporates abroad, I wish to provide global consultancy, then increasingly English communication has become much more important. The CMP committee is supporting the WTO committee and the International Affairs Committee of the ICI in providing fundamental training, you could say, closing the gap type of activities, and this is the start of the one on communication. I would like to listen to the speakers and come back in the end. Before that, I would only like to mention that we have a couple of initiatives already lined up, which are working, which is called Practice Ki Pathshala. This is for anybody who wishes to fast track his practice, feels that he's not moving, she's not moving up. A 4-day course which can spark and get you new ideas, get new connects. One more initiative is the GST dispute resolution, which is doing tremendously well, a 6-day course. Those of you who are interested in either of these courses could contact your local branch. I would like to hand over back to Priyanshu, and I will come back in the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the opening remarks. So, our first speaker is CA Sohail Goyalji, and he is a second generation entrepreneur and a Harvard Business School graduate with over 20 years of experience as a chartered accountant. Currently, he is an executive vice president of an accounting outsourcing firm. He leads a powerhouse team of 500 professionals delivering 24 into 7 accounting and compliance support to firms across the globe. Beyond his corporate role, Sohailji actively shapes the profession's future through his work with Global Asia Pacific, the ICI Committee for Skill and Capacity Enhancement, and NASCOM North. Known for his clarity first, people first leadership, Sohailji specializes in converting complex cross border mandates into scalable, repeatable outcomes. Today, he will share how outsourcing opportunities for chartered accountants can be unlocked and how clarity of thinking sharpens every aspect of communication from defining scope and SLAs to managing change and building trust. Sir, I give the session to you. You may please take the session.
Thank you so much, and a very warm good morning to everyone who's attended. Just as basic housekeeping sanity checks, I hope everyone can hear me and can also see my screen. Priyanshu, if you can just confirm. Thank you.
Yes, sir, we can see your screen and very well we can hear you.
Perfect, great. Firstly, my big congratulations to the Institute and my support to the Institute under Mr. Madhukar's leadership in this particular session and all the topics that we're looking to drive capacity as well as the credibility of our professionals workforce when they're interacting with fellow professionals from any part of the global world. As we all call it, a Vasudev Kutum. At the end of the day, the accounting profession today is a global profession where all of us need to be working with fellow professionals coming in from different parts of the country as well as different parts of the globe. As much as it's relevant that we understand how we need to communicate with someone we're speaking with from London or from New York, but I think also what is important is if we are working together in a virtual environment, in a remote working environment, we may have colleagues sitting in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Chennai, in New Delhi, in Gurgaon, in eastern parts of our country. And at the same point of time, we need to understand that within our team as well, communication becomes very, very important. So in the next, I'd say about 15 to 20 minutes, I'll try and make this a session more about trying to communicate better in the accounting profession. What should be some of the tools? What should be some of the strategies? I'll try and make this more practical and more relevant from an accounts offshoring point of view, rather than this being a very theoretical session. So without further ado, I'd like to continue and talk about why the art of clear thinking becomes extremely relevant from an outsourcing point of view. As you can see on the screen and what I mentioned right in the beginning, the environment that we're working in today is not just demanding from us compliance or delivering the work that is what we are expected to do. But what I think we need to develop as professionals is the ability to think critically, the ability to communicate financial insights with unparalleled clarity. And therefore, this is no longer just a soft skill, but I think from my perspective, anytime that you're speaking to any stakeholder, the ability for you to communicate what you're thinking and what you're wanting the person on the other side to understand becomes extremely important. I'll start with a very simple example. When I started in this journey 15, 17 years ago, I used to only focus on the technical parts of my presentation, which means if I was speaking to a CFO of a company or if I was presenting a set of audited accounts to the management, I used to spend a lot of time in the technical parts of the reporting, of the accounting disclosures, of what were the technical challenges coming out of the audit. But what I failed to understand back then is that the user on the other side may or may not want the technicalities. What they're wanting is a structured approach, a structured analytical report. And finally, they want to understand what is it that I actually wanted to communicate. While I may have spent 30 minutes talking about a technical part of the presentation, it's literally right at the end when they said, "Bolna kya cha rahe ho?" Which probably for all of us to take as context is, have we been able to clearly communicate in a precise and an actionable manner what the client has understood or not? The other thing that I wanted to talk about in this is that a lot of times when we focus on the accounting problem, we focus on what is the actual thing that we need to think through. We forget what is it that the client on the other side or the user on the other side is wanting to get as the outcome, which means are we proactively thinking, are we proactively looking at what are the insights, and therefore clear thinking will always drive proactive insights, which means if you know and if you're able to communicate to the user what is it that you're wanting to communicate, the user on the other side will be able to understand the insights from your presentation, insights from the topic, rather than just the high level stuff. Moving forward, I think communication becomes extremely relevant in today's global world to drive strategic partnerships. When we're interacting with people through technology, through tools like Zoom, uh, a lot of times, if we're not clear with what message we're trying to say and what we are trying to share, there is no rapport that we build on the other side. Again, as a very simple example, whenever I start talking to a client of mine in New York or in London, I don't straight away start by talking to him about the subject. I would definitely spend 30 seconds to 1 minute just generally checking with him how things were in his part of the world, how his family was doing, what were the most recent weather events, if that's affecting a weather-related challenge, just talk through some sporting events or just something to build a more human-to-human connection rather than this being a very transactional discussion. So again, communication becomes very relevant to build strategic partnerships. In the next few slides, I think what I'd like for each of the users who's listened in and who spent valuable time to be part of this session is some of the technology tools that are also at your disposal, things that would become relevant for you to use in a day-to-day workshop style. And then finally, how after these next 2 hours that you're going to be with us, I'm confident that you'll be able to overall revolutionize your thinking style, optimize some of the workflows, and finally portray and position yourself as a strategic partner in the global F&A outsourcing world. Moving forward, I think I like to talk about what kind of a chain reaction typically comes through a communication which is done in a good way versus a communication which is not always done in a great way. If you look at the left part of the screen, there are 3 basic bullets which will define when you start with clear thinking, there is a structured approach to a problem solving and analysis. By that, what I mean is just using audit planning as an example. Whenever you start doing an audit, you first spend a lot of time in understanding what the problem is. You define through a structured audit planning program, what is it that you are aspiring to do as part of the audit? Why can't we as professionals adapt the same and adopt the same approach in our communication? Which means if you're going into a conversation with a client or with your team, make sure that you spend 15 minutes to plan your communication. What is it that you'll say right at the beginning of the conversation? What is it that you're going to talk through in the middle? And then how do you intend to wrap up the conversation? What becomes very important, and that's where I move to the topic of clear communication. Are you precise? Which means, have you been able to communicate what exactly you wanted to communicate? And then finally, I think a lot of times all of us make this mistake is the lack of validation, which means if I have said something, has the person on the other side also understood it in the same way? Which means I may have communicated something, but if the other person is completely understood in a different context, then when you reconnect after a few days or after a few weeks, the gap between what you wanted that person to deliver and what he's actually delivered is so much wider. And therefore, it becomes very important that you validate each of the points that the other user has also understood as you end the conversation. And then finally, as a trusted partner, as a great communicator, this becomes an important tool in any of the discussions that you're going to be having. Now, flip over to the cost of muddy thinking. Just imagine a conversation that you may have had with your colleagues, with your client, or with anyone across the world. The fact that if you did not do this communication correctly in the beginning, at times what would happen is that you delivered the work after a span of 15 days, and the client expected you to do something completely different. What just means that you have to rework at your own cost, at your own expense, the entire deliverable over this period of time. You've automatically breached the SLAs that you were supposed to be working with. And this becomes very, very relevant when you're working in a global outsourcing environment. I think the world today is all about what are the SLAs, what are the targets, what are the ultimate KRAs that you're supposed to be delivering to. And then finally, the cost is really just losing the client confidence. The person sitting on the other side, he doesn't know you as well. You don't have a great rapport. And if you're also a bad communicator, what just means is that complete shattering of the client confidence, which is very hard to build. Then second, which is ambiguous reporting. It just means that every time that you've not validated and communicated the way that you ought to have, there will be so many more questions coming to you from the user on the other side. There'll be so many more questions that are going to be coming to you, rather than perhaps just spending 5 minutes at the end of the conversation in summarizing the conversation, in making sure that the person on the other side is understood what you wanted them to understand, and therefore reduce the number of questions that are going to come through. Again, a practical tip that I always try and implement with myself and my team is when you finish a conversation, let's say you're having a Zoom call with a client on the other side, make sure minutes of the meeting, make sure that minutes of the entire conversation are shared within a span of 12 to 24 hours at the most. The more time that you spend in delaying sharing the minutes of the meeting, there's going to be misunderstanding, misreporting, and there could be perhaps just a question of doing things in a different way to a different timeline than what the user on the other side wanted you to do. So again, in summary, minutes of the meeting becomes a very important tool. And then finally, just as basic study that I'm sure all of us have seen in our professional world, anytime there is an inefficient process, that becomes a very costly outcome, both in terms of time and resources that we can't get back in terms of delivering work to the client. Moving forward, I think I wanted to give this broad three structured way of approaching communication. Again, this is not the only approach. You're all free to use any other approaches that might work for you. But I at least wanted these three different approaches that each one of us could perhaps consider and then deploy at any point of time when they're communicating with the users on the other side. The first is the pyramid principle. Again, a pyramid principle always talks about what is the recommendation on the top, which means there are two approaches to having a conversation. Either you can go on for 20 minutes, talk through the entire problem and summarize it at the end, which is a bottom of the pyramid approach, or something which becomes more relevant and more impactful is if you start with the recommendation at the top, which means as soon as you start a conversation with someone, you say right at the beginning that this is what we are proposing to do. These are my recommendations, and the recommendations are therefore based on some of the rationale, some of the deeper analysis, some of the insights, some of the data that you would explain in the later part of your conversation. What that means and how that helps is that the user on the other side automatically knows right at the beginning what is it that you're trying to say, or what is it that you will summarize through the data, through the insights, through any bits that you're going to be talking about, rather than for 20 minutes, the user on the other side is just thinking what you may summarize at the end. And therefore, he or she has thought through so many different concepts, has thought through so many different permutation and combinations before coming to the end, which is what you would have summarized. Basically, this structured approach ensures that your key message is clear, which means right at the top, you said what is it that you wanted to say. Thereafter, you supported your points with logical data points, with logically organized insights that would be there. And then finally, it's a good way of summarizing and presenting complex problems, which may have a lot of options right at the end. So this is the concept of pyramid. The next framework that I wanted to talk to you about is the SCQA. SCQA would typically mean a situation, which means right at the beginning of the conversation, you describe what is the situation that you're talking about, why you're having this conversation, or what is the problem, what is the background of the problem, what is the context, so that you're setting that up right at the beginning. Then you define what is the complication, the C of the SCQA, which means what are the challenges, what are the constraints, what are some of the roadblocks that are coming through in the situation, so that the user on the other side is then able to understand the background, the context, the challenges, and appreciates the difficulty as you then move into what is the really the key question, which means once you've given the background, you've given what is the context of the challenges, then you really define for the user what is the question that we are solving for, or what is the question that you need some sort of input from the user on the other side. And then finally, what do you feel is the answer? Using this as a practical example, what is the situation? In my slide, I said that the month-end close currently takes 5 days. That's the current situation. What is the complication? The client actually wants it to be done in 3 days instead of the current situation being 5 days. What is therefore the question? The question to you and your teams is how can we accelerate the closing process and move it from 5 days to 3 days? And then finally, the answer that you as a professional are looking to come through or looking to solve is we need to standardize some of our reporting templates and automate key workflows to move from 5 days to 3 days. So what you understand from this framework is that you've described the situation, which is currently you're at 5 days. The question or the complication being that you need to move from 5 to 3. Therefore, what is the question? How do we move from 5 to 3? And then you come up with the answer, which is the standardization of reporting workflows and automation that would be the answer that you're looking at. This is the second framework. The third, which is a very deep philosophy. If any of you are interested, perhaps you can look through how Toyota, the car manufacturing company, how they look at communication challenges, and they've championed this concept of the 5 Ys or the 5 Ws, as they call it. The who, which means anytime that you're entering in a room or entering a conversation, identify who are the key people, identify each of their person's roles, stakeholders involved, etc. Which means when you enter a conversation, know everyone around you, who are the people that you're going to be listening to. Second, the what. Clearly define the problem, challenge, or opportunity at hand. The where. Determine the relevant locations if we're talking from, let's say, an organization or an audit which has multiple sites. You need to define at which location that particular problem is coming through. What are the peoples that are being affected? What are the settings, context? The when, which is obviously, are we talking about this at a particular time of the year? Is it throughout the year that the problem is happening? Or any other point of time? Let's say it could be early mornings or evenings, whatever is the when that may happen, as well as the when could also include what are the deadlines and what are some of the sequencing of events, the why and the how. I quickly jump to an example, which will be more easier for all of us to understand. When we look at the who, let's imagine you're entering into a meeting with a group of financial professionals. The who would be the client CFO, which is the ultimate stakeholder. There could be accounting managers in the room, the internal auditors, which are in the room. What, which means what is the problem at hand. They're looking to improve the month-end closing process to meet new regulatory reporting requirements. So right at the beginning, from a communication point of view, everyone in the room knows what is the subject about and what is it that they're looking to do. Now, they also look at where does this problem needs to be improved. And therefore, the room has agreed, or as a communication strategy, you've agreed that the problem is in the client's ERP system and Excel-based reporting template. So you've also defined where exactly this particular challenge or this problem is. When the deadline, which is within the next quarter, before the new regulations take effect, we need to solve for this. The why, which becomes essential because it needs to be done to ensure the accurate, timely financial reporting and avoiding penalties. Again, you've defined the rationale why you're looking to do this as an outcome. And therefore, you come to the how, which is really as part of the communication, as part of the overall strategy, how you will go ahead and solve the problem. So if you can understand all three frameworks, conceptually talk about similar things, it's just a different approach to how you would solve and improve the communication aspect in anything that you're doing in a global world. Let's quickly move to some of the tools, and then I promised I want to make this practical. AI-powered drafting, and I have a short video which I'll quickly move to, which will talk through how technology today can help. The second, which is visualization. And I think a lot of times as professionals, we miss the power of visually seeing something. And therefore, there are tools through Microsoft Power BI, which completely puts all of these things from a visual perspective rather than a theoretical or just from a long email or a long presentation point of view, which is confusing. You can also explore Google Data Studio, which can create at a very, very low cost and at times even free certain client-ready dashboards that get automatically updated from the underlying spreadsheets that we have. And then when you're finally using presentations, You have tools like Beautiful, like Otter, and including the more recent tools that I started using, which would be coming through Gemini versions of Google, or for a fact, a lot of other tools that would come through that would improve the quality of the presentation that you're finally doing. I think gone are the days where we used to spend hours and hours using a manual PowerPoint in delivering a lot of the presentations that we would be doing. And therefore, these are some of the practical aspects that you would take up. Before I move to the video and before I hand over the slide back to Madhukarji and the rest of the speakers, I think my recommendations to everyone would be that out of the three frameworks, whichever framework that most strongly sort of appeal to you, please do consider adopting and trying one of those frameworks. Do not manually focus a lot on some of the communication technologies as you move up in the gradual process of improving your communication. Use AI, use Google, use any of the tools that are widely available, including some of the tools that I know the Institute is also recommending and is suggesting. Do adopt them from AI perspective. And then finally, do track some of the progress when you're looking at whether it's better communication. How did the communication help? Were you able to improve the turnaround times? Were you able to improve the feedback scores coming from your clients? Share some of the best practices that you would have learned how you helped improve some of those things. And finally, the way I look at it, unless you are measuring progress in any field of life, you're not going to be improving. So my recommendation is definitely, even if it's communication, try and set up some measurable goals on how you're improving your communication. I'll quickly move to a 3 minutes short video, which talks about practically how ChatGPT and the related tools can be used to improve your business communications.
To use it, head over to chat.openai.com and sign up for an account. Now, at the time of this video, it's still free to use. However, this might change. Once logged in, you'll see a small text entry box where you can start chatting away. Here are some sample questions you might ask. I need a job description for a new executive assistant. Can you tell me the top 5 PCs in the market for me to buy for my company? Can you write me a 12-month marketing strategy for my real estate business? You get the idea so far? Now, if you're not happy with the response and need more information or clarity on a topic, you just ask additional questions. Can you give me a few more bullet points for the job description? I don't want to buy Macs, so can you just give me a list of PCs? I want my marketing strategy to focus on search engine optimization and content marketing only. Can you refine that list? Now go try for yourself. You'll see what I mean very quickly. Of course, ChatGPT does have some limits on what information it can provide. For instance, it may not be able to provide you with details on non-public figures or direct you towards illegal activities. But your searches in business really won't breach into those areas. So now that you understand that, here are the 4 top ways ChatGPT can enhance your business communications and make your life easier. Number 1, instant access to information. With ChatGPT, you have instantaneous access to a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. No more spending hours looking through search results or browsing archives. Simply ask ChatGPT and receive accurate and pertinent answers within seconds. Number 2, help you prepare documents. ChatGPT can assist with document preparation such as email drafts, reports, and proposals. Doing this can enhance the quality and consistency of your business communication. Number 3, help with research. ChatGPT can also assist with research for your documents. You can ask it to gather information on a particular topic or industry and get accurate data and statistics in return. And number 4, help you generate new ideas. ChatGPT can generate new business ideas and concepts based on your requirements and market trends. This helps you stay ahead of the competition and spot new opportunities before they appear. The real-world test of this is to take a real-world problem or question you have right now and see how you go with it using the tool.
Right at the end, because as somebody, of course, like with any other technology, you need to be absolutely sure to check it as a human, as a person. So please don't blindly rely on any of the outputs that any of the AI tools allow and share with you. In summary, again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this part of the presentation. And I'm sure there would be some relevant insights that you could take in. Some of these numbers that I've presented, those are indicative that what we've seen in our experience working with global accounting and international clientele, some of these numbers will take gradual amount of time and efforts from each of you to invest into it. But I think as a quick summary and as a request, I would definitely request each one of you to go deeper into some of these principles. You can YouTube them. You can look at the pyramid principles. You can go at some of the chat GPT or any of the other technology tools that are relevant. And again, I'd like to thank each one of you for listening into this part of the presentation. And there are questions. I think I have the permission to take a few questions in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for taking the session. We've got a question for you. Are outsourcing firms clear on what is the requirement from client? They need to update on a frequent basis.
So, Priyanshu, I think that's a very important question. Communication, and I would say very frequent communication, helps in reducing some of these gaps. So, at least what we recommend working in my organization is whenever you start working with an international outsourcing organization, you need to define right at the beginning what is the meaning of success for them. Why are they taking up this outsourcing arrangement? Are they looking to reduce cost? Are they looking to improve the turnaround time? Are they looking for some better quality work than what they can get in report towns? So basically some indicators of success. Once you define those success, you need to have very, very clear SOPs and sort of instructions that have been documented. So anytime that a team member of mine takes up an accounts finalization job, as an example, we've developed a lot of time and insights into a client specification builder, which means what is the capitalization threshold? At what level do we need to charge it to revenue versus capitalizing it? What is the level of thresholds that they are following for various other purposes? Do they like the depreciation to be calculated in a particular way, depending on the industry, depending on what is the background of the client? So therefore, there's a checklist of a good 25 to 30 points anytime you start a job. And then finally, as I said, once you've even done a particular job, you need to ensure that a checklist, which means review points, are communicated back to the client so that they know that these are the things, these are the assumptions that you've taken versus them thinking that a job has been done in a different way while you've taken different assumptions. So again, in the beginning, define what is the success, define how the work will be done, and then finally, the way that the work has been done, do share the notes and assumptions as part of the final output to the client as well. I hope that briefly gives a response to answer to the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for taking the session. And the viewers today, Sohail Goyal ji has taken his presentation on the art of clear thinking, elevating your outsourcing value. And in his presentation, he has highlighted uh, why clarity of thinking matters in outsourcing, the cost of unclear communication, practical frames like pyramid principle and SCQA, situation, complication, question, answer, and how AI tools can sharpen client communication and improve delivery. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the session and giving a correct or a great answer to the query of our member. So now we have a second speaker of the day. He is Dr. CA Dr. Soumik Bhushan, and he's a leader and a true problem solver, a chartered accountant from both India and England and Wales from further credentials, including CISA, US, PGD in Forex and Treasury, and Executive General Management program from IIM Bangalore. Soumik ji recently completed his PhD from IIM Ranchi in 2023. With over 20 years of cross-functional experience, he has served in leadership roles across finance, operations, product management, and customer experience. In his last corporate assignment as an CFO, he helped scale the business from inception to $1 billion top line while ensuring profitability. Sir, Soumik believes in building solutions that are simple, adaptable, and grounded. And today he will bring his rich perspectives on how clarity of thoughts empowers financial decision making, accelerates execution, and creates long term impact. Sir, I give the session to you. Now, you may take the session now.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction, Mr. Priyanshu. So I hope my voice is audible. Just a general
Yes,
check.
sir, you are audible.
Okay. So I'm just sharing my screen. Just give a confirmation if you're able to see the screen.
Yes, sir, we can see you.
Okay. And it is also moving as I change it here, right? You're able to see the
Yes,
change
sir.
also.
Yes,
Correct?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so in the first place, thanks, Mr. Madhukar, thanks, Priyanshu, and thanks the committee for giving me this opportunity to take the session on clarity of thinking. I firmly believe that in today's world, and I'm sure in the previous generation as well, communication has played a key role in different facets of our life, whether it is in our personal space or in the professional space. What I have tried to do and capture is that in continuation, what Mr. Suhail has explained about few of the frameworks, I've just tried to give maybe a little bit more framework and in the essence why these frameworks work that is embedded in the psychology, right, in the sense that how our brain tries to take these insights or how the brain processes the signals. Okay, so I've just tried to capture a few of these additional things, first of all, thanks also Mr. Swell for walking us through those frameworks, and these are really important ones, and I have personally used few of them, so I can also vouch that the other members should also start kind of using it. So now, moving on to the session, I think broadly there are five parts to it, and we will see that how much we are able to cover. But we will have a quick introduction about myself, then we will cover Gestalt laws, we'll also cover brain psychology, and how do you drive the clarity in communication. There's a small caselet. We will see if the time permits, we will also cover that. Just a quick, preview of where I am currently. So I started my CA journey way back in kind of 2000, 2007 I passed. Then my initial industry work was into equity research, multiple failures, kind of during the CA times. But I, kept on learning over time. In the third phase between 2011 to 15, I was into the retail and publishing sector. Again, I mean, being a finance person, I was into finance roles, but in the publishing domain, when I say publishing, I was working for a company which was into school book publishing. There, I also got the exposure of IT, which helped me to understand their system flows and so on. Between 2015 to 2020, I got the opportunity to work with the largest e-com organization of the world, and that's where I learned about critical thinking, building the clarity of thinking, how to prioritize, and also I learned the trick that if you need to get the clarity of thought, it's always good to write. From 2020 onwards, of course, I attempted a startup. I failed, became a CFO only after 40. So I know I am not someone who has got kind of everything before 40. So it is only after I have crossed certain milestone in my age and also grayed my hair much more. And then I also moved into academia post my CFO stint and pursued the chase towards learning and knowledge. Let's introduce that. I think all of us in the room or who are attending the session I think all of us have encountered all these problem that we make a fantastic report, but we are unable to drive what is the net story which we are trying to tell because it is dense. We have also possibly made a complex tax strategy, but unable to explain and leaving the client confused. And of course, we have might have met multiple clients, but we are unable to navigate to the next stage to try to kind of convert that. Now, why these things happen is maybe we are unable to articulate, or maybe we are, there is no clear thinking, and which leads to a lot of wasted time and effort, poor decision making. There are communication breakdowns, and of course, because finally it's a profession, it also increases stress and anxiety. Now, what is the solution? The solution is that we need to drive clarity in the way we are approaching anything. And by the way, clarity is a skill and it is not a natural talent. In today's interaction, we will try to, provide this practical frameworks, how you can drive this clarity of thinking by applying very simple, frameworks or approaches. Okay. So hence the key agenda is that, we need to understand that when you're communicating, how would the brain possibly process the signal or what you're saying, and how is there a way that you can communicate in such a way that the listener of your verbiage is able to organize and process it much more easily rather than in a complicated way, right? So with this, this is a framework which is called, or a psychological law, which is called a Gestalt law. Now this Gestalt law is a German school of thought which says that our brain has a has a processing power, and it processes everything into a whole, or in other words gestalt, which is much more than the sum of its parts. And there are five underlying law under the broad gestalt framework. It is, first is law of proximity, there is law of similarity, there is law of closure, meaning closeness, and there is law of continuity, and there is law of figure and ground, right? And we'll go what it means and also do a very practical example to understand how it is so relevant. Okay. So what is law of proximity? Law of proximity says that our brain is able to group things which are closer, right? So if you are able to put things close to each other, our brain understand these are connected, right? So essentially, if you just take into a practical example, you will see that in many cases we write the main topic and put the bullets. So our brain would very easily kind of process that, okay, these are connected to the main topic, and this is how we kind of possibly make slides, or even we write, or even we write kind of emails and so on and so forth. Then there is law of similarity. Brain processes the information which looks similar, meaning in sometimes you will see when we are trying to emphasize, we might try to write in a bold font, or maybe we convert that into italics, right? So why do we do it? Because the moment you are using consistent formatting, the signal to the brain is also very specific, right? And in some cases, you will see that if you may be hearing a pitch, or maybe you're kind of attending a session, you will suddenly feel that you are able to connect with the presentation very simply. Why? Maybe the person who is prepared that particular presentation, right? They have used this consistent formatting, or might have used visual icons to ensure that there is a flow of thought, right? That is the law of similarity. Then there is law of closure, right? What brain is able to do is that despite you not giving the full picture, right, brain is able to fill in the gaps, right? And how does it happen? That, and I'll show you an example there, that if you have written a like a wrong spelling, but brain will able to capture that, okay, what you wanted to mean, which means that it goes back to the same principle, that brain has the processing power which is much more than the sum of its part, right? So where do you typically apply here is that you don't need to overload your information with all the detail, right? If you are able to give the core idea, the audience or the reader brain will be able to fill in and make the obvious connections. Okay. Then there is law of continuity. It means that the brain follows a natural pattern. right? Even if there is disjointed or broken stuffs, it is able to naturally kind of process, and it takes the smoothest path, right? And hence you will see that whenever you are reading a book or any article, in some cases you will see that it goes in a free flowing manner, right? And hence in most of the cases you will see that if you have possibly liked a movie or a book, you will see that there is a certain sequence in which the screenplay is written, or you will see there is a certain infographic which is kind of used to ensure that there is a very clear flow of information, so that there is no ambiguity in terms of what is getting communicated. And of course there is a law of figure, or ground, or basically the background. It essentially means that if you are able to call out what is the main point, or what is your main presentation or the idea, and if you are able to separate it out from the supporting information, then again the brain is able to process it much easier. So if you recall, the session which was mentioned by Mr. Swell, he's used a framework called as the pyramid structure, and he said that you can always start with the conclusion, right? This is the area where actually the underlying theory which is there for that, for the pyramid structure, that if you're able to first tell the main point, then come to the reasons which support the main point, then automatically there is a clearer kind of a communication. Okay. Now we will see one example, right? And I wish that once I put this as an example, I wish that if there is a way that we can capture that how much seconds it takes for you to do that activity, and if Mr. Priyanshu, if you are able to open the other chat, and if people are able to give those the seconds which it took, that will be a good kind of testimony for us to understand if this experiment works or not. Okay, so. Okay, first, just try to see if you're able to read it. I'm sure you're able to read it, right? And this is what I was mentioning, that brain is able to process this despite we know that there are so many words which are wrong, right? If you are also able to read this part, this again goes back to what I started, that this is called as the all the other components, the law of proximity, law of closeness, and so on and so forth, right? Because our human mind does not need to get all the figures and all the alphabets in one place. It is super powerful to even kind of process it without you stating all the details, right? Now we will go to the next example, and I want all of you to take a stab and count the stars. And I'm just taking a quick note in my um, counter, that, and I just want to answer if it can be put on the chat, that how long you took to count. Okay. Anyone? Like Mr. Madhukar, Mr. Priyanshu, are you able to tell how many stars are there?
17.
Twenty maybe that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5. 19.
Okay. Could be 19, could be a little different. I think we missed this star, which is our Tare Zameen Par. I think this is something which you might have missed. Now, why I showed you, it is not that we don't know how to count, but just see that if I just make this small change and ask you the same question, count the stars, and
20.
I'm sure that you will be uh, possibly able to give that answer much
20.
faster, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Correct. What
Yes.
I
Yes.
have just done, I have just organized, right? And you are now able to see that your brain is able to understand, there are two different shapes. One is a star and one is a circle, right? And you're able to very clearly count, because I've asked to, count the stars. And you are able to, very articulately kind of count, what it is, right? Now, Now, if I just uh, take one step further and give you this, you will possibly see you're able to count much faster. And when I say much faster, maybe it's a fraction of second, but still it is better because I have disaggregated the stars and the circle, right? And if I give you this, possibly you might be able to count it better because I have now given a background and I have just given you much more clarity that, there's a very clearly what you have to count and there's a background to it, right? Now, this is what is the essence of Gestalt law. What it says that our brain processes information in a certain way, right? And there is law of proximity, law of closeness, and so on and so forth. There are 5 components to it. So, what is the key takeaway? The takeaway is that our brains are hardwired, right? It has a capability of filling the gaps naturally. We don't need to do too much to give all the details, right? So what it says is that proximity creates a relationship. The moment you want to say certain things together, please put the two things together, which essentially means that if you want to write something and you're trying to give a justification of why you are saying this, please give your justification and give the reasons in the same place, which means that if you're writing an email and if you're trying to give the reasons for that, it can't be scattered. Means, say you are saying that, okay, today, say, the markets fell by 1,000 points, and then you kind of spoke about what is going in the political side or what is going in Mumbai due to floods or whatever, and then in the end you say that actually the markets fell because of some XYZ reason. It can't happen like that. If you're wanting to talk about the markets, state the heading and talk about that point, which is with which you can support why the markets fell, right? And then it becomes a coherent paragraph. And because you are now understanding that someone who is reading that mail, they will always be able to read it better because there is proximity. And of course, if you are writing similar things, it will also create a unity, right? Which essentially means that if you want to use a certain font, certain color, please ensure that you are using those colors or font for a particular, set of information which you want it to be interpreted as one unit, right? Um, and that's exactly the reason why you write separate thoughts in separate paragraphs, because you know that the two paragraphs might not be connected, right? And if you're writing things kind of closely, then of course it completes the full picture, and that's why it creates a very clear continuity in the eye. And as I mentioned, that the brain also takes the smoothest and the continuous path, right? And it is very easily you're able to navigate through the entire situation. Okay. Now, I'll just take a quick pause. Any questions at this kind of at this point? I'm also opening my chat window to see if there's any kind of questions, and then we can move to the next section.
There are no questions right now. Members have only shared how many stars and circles were there. So no questions right now.
Okay, okay, great. Okay. Right. So now we will move on to something which is called as brain psychology, right? And this is the continuation of what we understood from the Gestalt's law, right? What is brain psychology? So, our brain, of course, has a cognitive biases, right? Which means that we generally try to judge by looking at the cover, right? As they say that judge the book by the cover, right? There is always an intuitive appeal. And what happens is that because of these cognitive biases, right, we tend to take some shortcuts, right, and we make some judgments which might not be right, or we try to take the decisions very quickly. Now, what are the different biases which are there, right? There is something which is called as confirmation bias. It means that there's a tendency to seek out the information that confirms our existing beliefs, right? Of course, in a professional setup, when you're talking to a client or you're talking to a prospective client, you can't do that, right? And the counter strategy is that always start playing a devil's advocate and try to discern the opinions, because the moment you try to take decisions too quickly based on your firm existing beliefs, you might be in a challenging situation, which will not be good for you, right? Because you will try to make a judgment which is not needed. We also have something called anchoring bias. This is where this bias happens because we rely on, or we over rely on the first piece of information which is offered, right? So this counter strategy is that we should acknowledge the anchor, right, but consciously keep on asking from wider range of data points, and hence we should not allow the first number of the idea to dominate the thinking. Like this, we also have something like a framing effect. This framing effect, means that how do you frame your sentences? Say, for instance, if you ask that how do we reduce cost, that might sound to a very dominating tone to the person who is listening, rather than if you're asking how do we increase the efficiency, or what new value we can create, right? All of these are, very critical in terms of how do you ensure that you are trying to create value for your customer, right? And the tone of it, the way you say it, the way you frame makes a lot of difference. I'll give you one more example. Say, for instance, you are um, seeing one billboard which says that there's a hospital which has provided and I mean which has provided one advertisement saying that, come to our hospital, we have this new method of doing a surgery, and which has 90% success rate, right? And imagine there is a second hospital which has given a similar method of surgery, which says that only 10% chances of failure through this method of surgery. Now both are saying the same thing, because one is saying there's 90% chances of you to get cured, and another is saying there's only 10% chance of failure. Of course, which hospital you'll go? 100% you'll go to the hospital which says 90% chance that you'll be kind of cured, right? Or 90 where it says a 90% chance of success, right? Because the framing of it leads to a different kind of decision which your brain will take, right? And actually this framing has been derived from a Nobel winning concept in behavioral finance, which is written by two gentlemen, Kahneman and Tversky, who has created a theory which is called as prospect theory. While I'm not going into the details of it, but this framing creates a different viewpoints about you as an individual, right? And hence it is very critical to ensure that when you are communicating, please frame in such a way that it should sound objective, it should sound specific, and it should not be at a tone which can possibly hurt the other individual. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, these are the three types of biases which can happen, right? Confirmation bias, anchoring bias, and framing effect, or the framing bias, right? Now, what is the idea? The idea is that, the brain isn't a passive calculator. It's a dynamic organ, and it constantly make the connections, whatever you're saying. And to communicate effectively, we must appeal to this function, right? So, otherwise it will, you will not be able to make an impact. You will not be able to, make that connection which is needed when you're talking to your client. In summary, what we are trying to say is that there's a lot of cognitive load to the person or even in you when you're communicating. And there's a lot of mental effort which is being used in the working memory. What is the strategy? The strategy is to simplify, simplify, and simplify. Whenever you're communicating, or even when you're executing a task, you need to break down the complex problems into smaller, manageable chunks, right? Because clarity isn't about just organizing the information. It is also about recognizing and overcoming these psychological traps in which our brain falls into. So it is important that whenever whatever work you're doing, whatever kind of communication you are happening, I mean, which you are entering into, whether it is verbal or written, see if there's a way that you can communicate with less. That is the key, which at least I have learned in my past kind of 20 years of experience. You need to make it simple for whom you are actually working, whether it's your company, whether it's your client, or and it can be any other stakeholder. Okay. Now we enters that how do we drive kind of clarity. So driving clarity, right? There are three approaches which I thought I will include. While one is common, which is the pyramid principle, but I'll also talk a little bit more detail about it. But there are other two. One is called as a so what test, right? And there is the pyramid principle, and third is a mind map, which is more like a visual tool, how you connect the ideas into a structure which can give the whole picture. Okay. Now let's go into the so what test. Then how do we, in terms of driving the clarity? So imagine that, there is a statement which is written that our new marketing campaign uses social media influencers. Now, the moment you read this, what do you understand? Do you understand anything? I think the moment you read this, it is very ambiguous, right? Because there is no impact which is needed, kind of needed. So if you imagine that you're writing a sentence, and after that, just ask yourself, so what? Then you will see that your articulation of that sentence will get much better. So imagine that now you're reading this. Our new marketing campaign uses social media influencers. So I ask myself, so what? Then I understand that, okay, um, this is not kind of good enough, and I test. So now I rewrite it. Our new marketing campaign uses social media influencers, which will allow us to reach a younger and more engaged demographic than traditional advertising. This is crucial because this group is our fast growing customer segment and a high lifetime value. Now, if you are unable to communicate in a way that this answers the importance of what you are saying, then it is an incomplete communication. And this is something which I have, or I think many of us have also seen. In some cases, you tend to discuss things in a smooth way, but you don't come on to any conclusion because none of your communication, whether it is verbal or written, passes the so what test, right? And I'll build on the so what test in the next coming slides. But please be sure that whenever you're writing anything or even saying anything, please ask in the end, is it good enough? Is it answering the so what? Because what is the key takeaway from this statement? In this particular example, the key takeaway is that the new marketing campaign helps you to reach to a younger and a different demographic, which is important for the growth of the business because this is the most important segment which you are, kind of trying to track, right? Um, right. So, the in the revised statement is of course beyond a simple description. It explains the significance, the reason, and the value. Correct. So always remember whenever you are writing something, in the end, also try to add what is the significance of this statement or that action, what is the reason, and what is the value which this action will create. Now, there is an extension of the so what is also something, you can also say what, so what, and now what, right? So, say for instance, you are trying to write a short report about a performance summary of a company for which either you're an auditor or you are giving some, financial accounting advisory services or outsourcing services. Now, say that when we say what is the data point? Say, for instance, our profit margin decreased by 2%. In today's world, you can't end any of your report with this single line. Then automatically the next question comes, so what? Which means what is the implication of the significance? Then you should write, this puts us below the industry average and threatens our ability to secure new line of credit, right? Now, of course, if you leave at that, then you are not actually driving the value creation. Then this was something which even the client could have also realized. You need to give what is the path forward. There it comes. Now what? Now what is nothing but the recommendation or the action plan. It should say we recommend a 3-point plan to optimize our supply chain credit starting immediately, right? So this framework forces you to go beyond data kind of reporting towards strategic thinking. So I'll again, pause, 10 seconds here. So just reflect on it. Always ask this question once you say something, what means the data point? Then there is so what, which means what is the implication of the significance? And now what means what is the recommendation of the action plan? Okay. So I'll take again a short pause. Any questions, anything which you have got till now, Mr. Priyanshu?
I'll just check. There's a question. When
Yeah.
under pressure, do things. We may communicate in a hurry or skip some things. How to avoid these?
Yes. First of all, is that when there is a rush, I think it is important to take pauses, and I think it is okay in today's world to say that I'll get back to you. But whenever you say I get back to you, The right level of communication is not that I'll get back to you. The way to communicate is I'll get back to you by end of the day today, or I'll get back to you by 10 a.m. tomorrow, because then you are giving a very firm answer, the time which you need to process the information and help your client to get a convincing answer, right? In rush, I think there is always a challenge that what you want to communicate and what you actually communicate, there could be a big delta, and it is better in such situations to pause and buy in time. That's what I can say. Yeah. Any other question?
I had one. Can I ask?
Yeah.
See, we have heard of these approaches, very interesting. The pyramid approach or so what approach. Are
Hmm.
there certain situations where one is better to use than the other? So we got 5 approaches now. One was SCQA, pyramid, then 5 Ws, and so what. For me, somehow
Hmm.
so what seems to be a very nice one, but
Hmm.
I might be biased. So which one will be better?
Okay. So, the short answer is that, there is not a, straightforward prescription. What all of these frameworks try to tell you, and I have to, explain that, there is two ways of thinking. Okay. One is called as inductive thinking. The other is called as deductive thinking. Okay. What is inductive thinking? Inductive thinking comes from the word induce, meaning inducing you to think. And deductive word has come from the word deduce. Okay, because I'm giving you information, I'm making you to deduce something. Okay, I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, I mean, this is just an example, right? Say, there is a crime scene, and there is a kind of court setting where there's a lawyer, and imagine that someone has kind of committed a crime, right? I can say like this, that kind of Mr. or someone X is the person who has who has actually committed the crime. The reason is that I found the fingerprints on the crime scene. I found the different blood stains on the bed sheet, and I found the person on whom the crime was committed to be kind of there near the bed, right? So in this thing, what you're doing is that you are starting with a conclusion saying that Mr. X is the perpetrator of the crime, right? In the second situation, I'll reverse the order. I'll say I went to the crime scene. I found the bed sheet with the blood stain. I found the weapon. On the weapon, I did the test. I found the fingerprints. The fingerprints match with X, and hence X is the perpetrator of the crime. So in both the approaches, nothing is better than the other. It depends on the situation in which you are communicating. I'm sure if you are communicating in this example in a court setting, it will be totally wrong to apply the inductive thinking. You should rather go by the deductive approach, where you keep on giving information and the end you give what is the conclusion, right? However, in a more professional setting, what I have been seeing is that because our span of attention has totally come down, we first want to hear what is the net thing what you want to tell. So I would should tell a client that, okay, um, uh, say you have done the financial analysis of one particular quarter of the year. You just say that we have achieved a kind of a return on equity which is kind of better than the plan by 5%, right? So you start with that. The moment I have injecting this information to you, automatically your brain will tell why it is 5% better. Then you say our profitability has been better. The moment I say that this has been driven due to better profits than my plan. Then automatically next question will come, why are my profits better? Then you say that profits are better because of higher sales growth and subdued kind of expenses through the initiatives which has been taken to drive the efficiency. So automatically you will see there will be Q&A kind of a setup which you will do, and that's the art of the making the conversation into what goes into inductive thinking, right? And that's what your Minto pyramid or your the pyramid structure which I was explaining, or Mr. Suel was explaining, or even this so what approach actually hinges upon, right? You are starting with a conclusion, you are starting with what is your final governing thought, and then you are inducing people to think. I'll just take 30 more seconds and then I'll pause. Say, for instance, when you read any article in a newspaper, you will see the headline is an inductive approach. You will see that Sensex fell by 100 points, right? That is the headline. Automatically, the moment you read that, there are 3 4 questions which come to your mind. Why did it fall? Is it a particular sector? Is it a particular company? Is it a macroeconomic factor? And the moment you start reading that piece in the newspaper, you will see that this first line of that article answers all of these questions in a certain sequence, right? And that's the beauty of this inductive thinking. Yeah. So I'll take a pause. I hope I was able to clarify or
Yes,
answer
yes.
your question, Mr. Madhukar. Was it okay?
Yeah, it was fine.
Okay.
I got
Right.
it.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'll move on to the next one. All right. So now we'll call we will come to the pyramid structure. This is called as a Minto pyramid. Basically, this is something which has been defined or designed by a lady by the name of Barbara Minto. She used to work in McKinsey, and her framework was very simple. Right? She said that start with your final thought or the governing thought, and that is the top of your pyramid. Okay. So say, for instance, if there's a situation that you have to convince a supervisor to invest in a new project management software, your top level idea should be we should invest in a new project management software to increase team efficiency and project transparency, right? The moment you start with that, the automatic question will come in that what are the supporting arguments to your fact that why the software is needed, and how do you define efficiency, and what do you mean by project transparency? Then you give your first argument. The current system is inefficient and time consuming. Then you further give the detail, right, which is supporting your argument. And hence I've written detail 1.1, 1.2 to justify why you, how do you define inefficiency, and why do you define, what do you mean by time consuming, right? So there should be a clear metric which can state that. The second argument, which can support your top level idea of investing in the project management software, is that the project management software will give real time project visibility. Now, the question to support, or the facts to support your argument too, will be because it is centralized dashboard, it can show deadline status, resource allocation, and it will also help to identify the potential bottleneck. Then you can give third argument saying that the investment aligns with the company-wide goal of digital transformation, right? So again, if you see this approach, what we are trying to do is that we are again following the inductive approach, right? Where you are, trying to justify your overall governing thought, or your conclusion. So you actually start with the conclusion and keep on giving the reasons, right? So this is, what is called as a Minto pyramid, right? Typically, I would say that I have practiced Minto pyramid extensively when I currently also write. Whether I write an email, or whether I write any paper, or whether I write any article, I follow this principle because this, resonates with the brain thinking process very well. Because you will be able to see that you're able to build a very clear connect between either the reader or the listener to what you're saying. Okay, so this is how the structure typically look like, right? As I mentioned, this is kind of designed by Barbara Minto, and you start with a question which is the main point, what you want your audience to take away, right? And then you keep giving insights, and for each insight you give the supporting, right? So hence it is called as a pyramid, because there's a tipping point where you want to state your, what is the key takeaway from what you want to communicate, right? It could be that you want to communicate that the profits have been better than the plan, or the ROE is better than the plan. That should be your first point. Or it could also be that you want to communicate that, due to the economic pressure, we are seeing a strain on the top lines. So if that is your key governing point, please put that as a top point. because where you need more kind of discussions to happen. Okay. Then it comes, which is something called the mind mapping, right? So this mind mapping typically helps you to, enable, certain workflow in the thinking process, right? There are multiple tools to drive that. I'll instead of going to the text, I'll try to see if there's a kind of visual kind of representation. So if the use case is how do you improve the team communication, then you can break it down into there could be tools, technology, there could be process, there could be culture, there could be areas of training kind of development, right? Mind map typically creates a interconnectedness between the ideas, and it helps to again find kind of tell you that how you can achieve your final governing thought. Your final problem, what you're trying to solve is how to improve the team communication. And mind map is also a way where instead of writing heavy text, you're just putting, some arrows and some structure to tell that what are the key pillars to solve that problem, right? In this example, the problem statement was to improve team communication. And here you're saying there are 4 pillars, which are tools, technology, process, culture, and training. And under that, you're saying that what are the different ways how you can help in doing it, correct? So in summary, right, what is the call to action is that next time when you face a complex problem or when you're communicating, please start implementing what, so what, and now what, or the Minto pyramid or the mind map, right? As I said that what you're trying to do is you are in essence trying to activate the brain in the way you want to make the listener or the reader of the information to react, right? So the moment you start with a governing thought, what you're telling the reader or your listener is that what is the key point what you want to convey. And because, as I said, that Gestalt law as a theory of psychology says that the brain's processing power is heavy and it is much more than the sum of its part. The moment you start with a governing thought, you'll automatically, be able to understand that that what more the reader or the listener would need it from you, right? And then keep on giving the answers in a staggered manner so that you are able to prioritize that individual's time and also, grab the span of attention. Because in today's world, you will see one of the critical point is that the span of attention is just reduced. If in 1 minute you are unable to gain traction, or 1 or 2 minutes, you will see suddenly you will see the person with whom you're talking to just loses interest and the meetings or the conversation doesn't go anywhere, right? So this is the second part of my presentation. As I said, we started with, or this is that we started with what is the Gestalt law. Then we covered brain psychology, and we then understood the tools which can drive the clarity of thought. Actually, this is the third part of the presentation. Now we will try to give one more or few more example, right? Say for instance, and this is again an example of the so what and so on and so forth. Say if you are
ಡ್ರೈ ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಇದೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ರ್ಯಾಪರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಂದೆ.
okay, there's a audio in the background.
ನೀವು ನನ್ನ ಹಾಯ್
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so one of the important things here just to understand how our uh, again it's a part of the writing or part of driving the communication. Instead of just saying revenue is up by 15%, please, the more effective way to say is what has helped in the revenue going up. So our marketing campaign drove a 15% increase in revenue, which means we can now allocate additional 50,000 in R&D. So again, I'm saying what, why, and so what, right? So hence in your communication, whether it is written or verbal, please ensure this framework is maintained. What is the data, why, and so what, right? So this will complete the story what you're trying to say. Okay, we'll go to the next example. uh, you know um, you will also see that there is something called as a primacy and recency effect, right? Our brain tends to remember first primacy and the last recency, right? And hence when you are presenting to a client, start with your most important finding or the recommendation, right? And end with a powerful summary or your key action plan, right? Because this will help you to keep the client kind of connected with what you're trying to deliver. In the middle, you may, you can keep any other information, right? But your start and the end should be super powerful, right? Because this is how our brain tends to remember, right? There's a first is your primacy, right? What is the prime point, and the last is recency. What is your call to action? Because no one wants to live in the past, right? Everyone, in whichever service lines which you're offering, everyone as a professional, from you as a chartered accountant or even us, all of us, they want what is the path forward, what is the solution, what is that I'm creating value for our client, right? So delving into the past, history is anyway known. We always need to conclude with a forward-looking thought, and which can lead to something which is good for the organization, right? And hence, this is also one of the recommendation which I can give you. Um, the other thing is that whenever you're communicating or whenever you're writing, always understand this part. This is called as power of chunking, right? And the brain's working memory can hold maximum 4 to 7 chunks, right? So hence the example is that we should not have a point or a paragraph where you're writing kind of 12 different bullet points, right? Break them, right? And hence you will see that even in our fundamental days of understanding financial ratios, we can't write liquidity, solvency, profitability in one place, right? It has to be separated out so that the impact of each can be, kind of understood well, right? Because this will reduce the cognitive load and help the information to be processed faster. So remember this concept of power of chunking. The other part which is important is that the story of the future, and this is what exactly I was also trying to mention when I mentioned about primacy and recency, is that our brains are generally are generally prediction machines. We are constantly trying to anticipate, right? So in any work which you have done, don't just present last year's number. Try to paint a picture for the future. Say, for instance, last year's cost runs were primarily due to X, Y, and Z. Based on this, our projection of the next quarter is a 10% reduction in cost if you implement strategy A, right? This will help you to get well connected, and that's why in all your assignments and engagements you will be able to create value for your customers, right? Because as I said, that your clients, right, the brain of your client is trying to understand the predictability of the solution or the service which you're giving. And it would make them feel that okay, there is something good which is coming in the future, right? And that's where we all can kind of claim some success, right? That okay, we have helped the client to go from X to Y or A to B or whatever it is, right? So in summary, the way our brain thinks is they think why over the what. There is a primacy and a recency effect. There's a power of chunking, and of course there is a story of the future. Okay, so this is how the entire setup works. So again, I'll take a pause and then I'll see if there's any question, and then I'll go to the next session or the next section.
No, sir,
Yes.
there is no questions now. There are no questions as of now, sir.
How many people, Priyanshu?
Mm, I'll just check. I'll just reload. So there are 305 people right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So then I'm moving on to the next part. Okay. Okay. So this is the section where we'll always, I think all of us have heard the concept of a left and right brain, right? And the left and right brain concept is very popular, right? While it's a simplified idea, but and it is also used as a metaphor. But the idea is that in essence, the brain doesn't individually work as a left or right brain. It is still kind of connected, and that's where we say that while the left hemisphere or the brain is responsible for logic and analysis, the right hemisphere handles creativity and intuition, right? And there's always interconnected, right? And there's a nuanced understanding of this. Well, I'm not a psychologist, not a doctor or nothing, but I personally felt that in our domain we are typically left brained, in the sense that we understand logic and analysis. Where we possibly have an opportunity to improve is driving creativity and intuition. That how can I create the analysis in such a way it is more intuitive, it is more appealing, it is more simplified, right? So that people understand that we are all here to make things simple and kind of creative, so that we're able to give a fantastic solution of the problem which our customers are facing, right? So just getting into few facts about the hemisphere. This left brain is the analyst, right? It is basically processing all the data, right? It gives the logical kind of reasoning, the sequential thinking, solving mathematical problems, right? It also helps in the language and speeches, critical thinking, number of facts, right? And by design, the left brain control the right side of the body, and similarly the other way around. The right brain is the creative part of it, right? It drives visual and spatial skills, right? It drives intuition, emotions, and also it helps in holistic kind of processing. And the right brain controls the left side of the body, right? Uh, you know, it is that part of the brain which is a creative director. It helps you to paint the bigger picture. Now, as accountants or finance professionals, we are generally left brain, or because we believe in numbers, logic, right? But we possibly at times miss the intuition or the bigger picture which the client wants, right? And hence the key takeaway uh, is that because these two brains are not separate entities, we must also connect the mix of numbers, logic with the bigger picture or intuition. And this is where I would say that all the frameworks which we learn today, whether it is so what or mind map or your Minto pyramid or the pyramid structure, will help you. Because if you are applying this by force, what you're doing, say in a Minto pyramid, you are being now told that start with a governing thought. The moment you start with a governing thought, that is exactly where you are trying to give the intuition or the bigger picture. Then you can give your supportings that, okay, these are the reasons why it happened, and this is the further reasons which supports your thought above, right? And and hence I kept on saying that the whole idea of this entire conversation which we are having today is that how you can make your communication style inductive based, where you're starting with a governing thought, and automatically you are inducing the brain to ask very commonsensical questions, right? Say for instance, imagine that I am coming to office today and I was late, right? So I will um, and say I have a meeting with my manager, and I come in his room and say that, sorry, I got late uh, by 10 minutes, right? The moment I start with this governing thought, automatic question which will come in the manager's mind is that, why did you get stuck? Not why did you get stuck, why were you late? So I said I was late because there was traffic in a certain junction. So then they will say, why there was traffic? Maybe I can say I just started maybe 5 minutes late than my usual time. Then the question can be, why did you start 5 minutes late? Because maybe today I woke up late. Why did you woke up late? Because it was raining last night and I came late, or I had a little longer sleep than I generally anticipate, right? So basically, this approach, what it helps is that it helps you to go to the lowest common denominator. And the communication style becomes kind of Q&A. It's not that you will always explicitly ask the question and give the answers, but your manager might be okay to just to say that, okay, uh, he accepts and acknowledges you are late by 10 minutes and you move on. Or if someone is intuitive enough or wants more details, they can keep on asking you more questions, right? Right. So, that's the, broad part of it. Now, I just want you to listen to this, and I'll just play for 5 seconds just to take a confirmation that whether, the audio is um, clear enough.
So you can start. I'll let you know.
Are you able to hear the audio?
No, sir, we cannot.
You cannot. Okay, is there a setting which has to be changed for the audio, or okay, just let me see.
No, setting needs not to be changed, sir.
Is it okay now?
No sound is coming.
There is no sound?
No.
No.
Okay, just 1 second.
Uh,
Mm,
and are fundamentally changed by the words and actions of others. The journey.
I'll just start from the beginning, just 1 second.
Okay. Yeah.
Of a message begins seen as a simple exchange of words. Yet beneath the surface of every conversation lies a complex silent ballet between two brains. It's a dance governed by a sophisticated theory that explains not just what we say, but how our brains interpret, react to, and are fundamentally changed by the words and actions of others. The journey of a message begins not with the speaker, but with the speaker's brain. An idea, a feeling, a thought. It starts as a chaotic electrical storm in the neural networks. The brain's language centers, primarily in the left hemisphere, scramble to translate this abstract thought into a linear, coherent sequence of words. This is a complex act of translation, often imperfect and prone to the cognitive biases and emotional states of the speaker. Once the words are uttered, they become a wave of vibrations traveling through the air. But they are not alone. Accompanying them is a second, even more powerful signal. Body language. The speaker's posture, facial expressions, and hand gestures, all orchestrated by a different part of the brain, largely in the right hemisphere, provide the crucial context. The listener's brain is a phenomenal decoder, taking in both sets of signals simultaneously. The auditory cortex processes the sound, while the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, and other regions rapidly assess the nonverbal cues for sincerity, threat, or rapport. This is where the magic and the potential for misunderstanding happens. The listener's brain doesn't just receive the message, it reconstructs it. It filters the words through a lifetime of personal experience, memories, biases, and emotional baggage. The phrase, "we need to talk about the budget," can land very differently depending on whether the listener's brain associates those words with past reprimands or collaborative problem solving. This is why a simple comment can trigger a disproportionate emotional response. The brain isn't just reacting to the words, but to the entire narrative it's been conditioned to expect. Ultimately, effective communication is about more than just transmitting information. It's about building a shared reality. A skilled communicator understands that their words are just the starting point. They focus on clarity, not just in their message, but also in their nonverbal cues to reduce the noise in the transmission. They practice empathy, trying to anticipate how the listener's brain might reconstruct their message. They understand that a message of why is more powerful than a message of what, because it speaks directly to the brain's innate need for purpose and connection. In the end, every communication is a negotiation between two brains, each with its own story. The most successful interactions are those where the brains, through mutual respect and clear signals, manage to create a new, shared narrative, leaving both participants feeling understood and aligned. This is not just an art, it is a profound biological and psychological act.
Yeah, I hope we could get some sense out of video or the audio rather, right? So hence I say that that communication when you're doing, and I think we have very clearly experienced in our life that when someone says this particular word, suddenly we see people to either react in a different way, and the reason it happens is that, as I said, that our brain is overloaded with a lot of cognitive biases, and it goes back to the way our upbringing, the way whatever we have heard, learned in our school or childhood, and so on. So hence, of course, it is not possible for you to know that what is the past of your clients or the person with whom you're speaking to. But I think practicing this communication style, which is very moderate, or having a sense of empathy and so on and so forth might be useful in kind of terms of how you drive conversations and so on. So I think, with that, I would conclude, today's session. But what is coming up, and we are working with, basically with Mr. Madhukar and the same team, and with Mr. Pianchu, is like an extended workshop of possibly 1 or 2 days in terms of practicing this in the hard way, meaning we will have focus group discussions, we will have case studies where we will typically understand how it can be implemented on ground, then questioning each other, putting us in front of an audience to making you speak, make flowcharts and so on and so forth, right? So with that, I conclude. I again thank Mr. Madhukar, Mr. Priyanshu, the entire body of ICAI for giving me this opportunity and the forum to speak about something. And again, I am no expert in this domain. I'm just trying, but yeah, I'm just trying to get the pieces together. Hope this session has given you some perspective about communication, about thinking, about the narrative or the bigger picture you want to portray, with your clients. And that's all from my side. And have a great day ahead. Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, thank you so much, sir. We are having 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah.
So one is one of our members want to know the pyramid structure in simple terms.
Okay. So the
Mhm.
pyramid structure in simple term, you can just think it as if you are starting with the conclusion, right?
Mhm.
And as I said, I'll give again a simple example of, say, the markets crashed by 1000 points. If this is the point which I just say to you right now, what are the points which will come into your mind? The
Yeah.
first point which will come is why the markets fell by 1000 points, right? So the moment this point comes, I give you the next sentence of my communication. You will not ask me practically, right? But I know that the moment I ingest this line into your mind, your brain will automatically ask, why did it happen, right? Because that's a very commonsensical thing, and that's how the brain is basically wired. So in my note or the article which I'm writing about, or which I'm trying to communicate or speak with you, the next line should be you know should back the first line which I say. My first line was the markets crashed by 1000 points. So my second line should be the three primary reasons caused this kind of a downtrend. First, the macroeconomic trend where RBI increased maybe the repo rate. Second, global cues where there is an interest kind of increase across the other markets. Third could be there is a policy which has come into the oil and gas sector where the imports are restricted, right? So the moment I say these three reasons, your brain will again process that why RBI increased the repo rate, or what is the global cues which has happened, or what is the policy change which has happened. So in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth line, I just need to give a backing of what I have said, and then it creates and paints the entire story in one go. I hope I was able to explain this.
Yes, sir. There is another question. We must just work as such for want of time. Should we ask why and what of a thing before starting an activity?
Of course, I think one of the important thing, which again, this what I have learned, is that if you are able to clearly define an outcome, right, uh, and what the output should look like, and what success means for the client, then your delivery will be much more easier, right? See, in many cases, we define a SOW or scope of work, right, which
Mhm.
are mostly text. But what I am seeing in today's world, whether it is in the space of accounting, outsourcing, project management,
Mhm.
is a is that the clients want a very simplified template. They want, okay, uh, the outcome can be very textual heavy. It can say that I want to, drive efficiency in my company. But you as a service provider should define what that outcome means in terms of output. You can write, okay, to drive efficiency, we might need to improve maybe the transaction processing time from 10 minutes to 8 minutes. The next could be I need to improve the maybe the cost which is getting incurred for my people by from say 15% to maybe 13%, and there could be third, fourth other thing, right? So it is your job to convert that outcome which the client works in a quantitative manner, which is your output. And once you have defined that output, you should create a grid, or what we call as a scorecard, which should have all these parameters which you have just defined, and there could be sub layers of those parameters, and you should give a week by week or a month on month or a quarter on quarter snapshot of the numbers to demonstrate that that outcome is getting achieved and your projects are on track.
Okay, sir. So thank you so much, sir. These are all the questions which we have. And I would share something which you shared with us, the clarity in thought, clarity in impact, and structured thinking, sharpened decisions, stronger trust, sustainable value. Grateful for the wisdom shared by you and great insights on the power of clarity and structure in communication. When thinking is clear, trust is stronger. So, thank you for this reminders, and thank you so much, sir, for giving a great session ahead. I would request our chairman, Madhukar, sir, to say something.
Thank you, Priyanshu. And Professor Saumik, it was great learning and understanding. I only wish people have absorbed what you have said. So, from the committee side, when I look at this subject, unfortunately, the numbers do not show the search that it is so important. I think the subject of which we spoke about today is very important. If I look at what the businesses say about this, they say that the communication part is invariably a major skill gap in chartered accountants. This is not what I am saying. This is what businesses say. So they say that it is our skill gap, not communicating properly. The top management, they say that for professional recognition, whether I am in a job or whether I am doing practice, communication plays a very big role. And in this digital age, engaging with people has become a very, very important aspect, not just giving them some figures. Coordinating has attained a lot of what I would say, coordinating, cooperating, collaborating. These are things which are becoming very, very important in contributing to the success of chartered accountants. As far as what we started off with, the objective of being able to communicate throughout the world, this needs bridging of cultural gaps, which means bridging of linguistic barriers. And as both of you said, it is more important how it is understood. It doesn't, I may have a great idea, but whether the idea is understood precisely is important, because that would build trust and improve my relationship with the client. Also, when there are so many people from India who are providing the service, it is certainly a differentiator, how you communicate, how it indicates the effort you have put to professionalize yourself. Sincerity opens up when people know that I have made an effort to prepare before I communicate with Dr. Saumik. He knows that I have spent this time, effort. It gives him a better feeling about me, more respectful, possibly opens the door which was slightly open, much wider. I think today we understood many things, that We could start every meeting with a bit of human connect, then some amount of validation of what I want to say, whether it has landed properly. And one thought which came to me when Suhail spoke and you spoke, Professor, was that I have to change my mindset a bit. I am thinking it is okay. As an Indian, I think that it is okay, but it's not okay. If I don't spend some time, if I don't go through some pain, my gain may be limited. Some of the thought processes which also came up was that, rather than complicating an issue, it's better to simplify. And it may be ideal that I do not become so verbose that my object or what I want to say gets hidden in the mass of information. Rather, it should be there in the starting clearly and possibly reiterated in the ending in the summary. One of the basic things which I think is there in all the consulting assignment, audit assignments, which also was brought out by you, was that understanding what the client wants, I think is the primary thing. And for us in India, I think we are good at many things. We can give personalized service, we can customize our service to what the client wants, if only we can understand the client. As far as the committee is concerned, we are looking at seeing how we can help everybody to get well trained, get future ready, get global consultancy ready. So with this 2 or 3 tools which are already available, number one tool which is available is English for Work. This is a WTO committee initiative where they have aligned with the British Council, where it allows one person 9 months access to a learning of English. And it is online, it is flexible. Cost also is, I think, quite small, which is 12,000 rupees for that 9 months, 100 plus hours. The learning is 100 plus hours. So I think it is a very good point from where many of us who come from, government schools, rural areas, or not from so good elite schools, which means that 90% of chartered accountants, basically 90% of us can do this English language course. English for Work. It's available, and maybe I would urge as many people as possible who think they need to improve their English to go for that. There are, of course, other online tools. In our office, we use Udemy, which is also a very, what I would say, reasonably costed tool. Other than this, ICI has also provided chat GPT to all the members. All you have to do is log in and go ahead. And over a period of time, many improvements also are being added. A person doesn't have to pay for that versions as long as he goes through the institute website. So this is something which is there. The third thing which is very important, I would say, for persons who are looking at serving abroad or serving people abroad or even serving the MNCs in India is the basic understanding of artificial intelligence. And for that, the AI committee has held around 500 to 600 workshops already on basic. I think it is a 3-day course, or yeah, it's a 3-day course, I think. And they actually, people who have done it, I only got a glimpse of it and I was quite impressed. But people who have done it from my office have been raving about it because it talks about many tools like Power BI, querying. Actually, they go Python, how you can use it practically. So how to use AI quickly for analytical type of answers is something which is available through this learning. The Advanced course also has been launched in AI. Other than this, we have a couple of courses on forensics, and one very important course is the certificate course on US tax outsourcing. This goes on, it's an online course and it goes for quite a long time. I have been urging the committee to see if we can make it the recording available at some minor cost, so that people who can't join the course at least can go through the recording. From our side, we will try and take the assistance of Professor Soumik to get this course, uh, on the way, maybe hold a couple of them in the major cities, and then maybe we'll even provide it online through a LMS if it is possible. I think doctor will have to guide us in that regard. With that, I would like to thank Suhail for his initial remarks and value addition, and also Professor Soumik for a detailed, quite insightful session, I would say. For me, at least, it was a great learning. And Professor, we will be keeping this recording available for others, lakhs of people who have not been able to take advantage of this. Let's see, maybe we should touch at least 10, 20,000 people, and maybe the workshops will attract a few more because it will be a physical meeting. Thank you both, and thank you, Priyanshu, for moderating the session.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward for many more like this. Feedback can be provided directly to the same CMP committee by all the people watching. Can you just put that site ID on the chat, Priyanshu, so that people can directly give the comments there?
We will be sending emails to everyone with the link.
Yeah. So if there's any small materials, Dr. Soumik, you can also share. You'll share that also when we send this. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
day.
Thank you to both of you. Thanks a lot. It was a good experience, a good learning for me, and I'm looking forward how we can build on it and see how we can help each other in the days to come. Please share any other feedback which you have received. It would be good for me to incorporate them, so that it's always a work in progress for me, because teaching or content is something you have to keep on incorporating the feedback, right? Because what I've done today, maybe in the next session when I take, there should be some change, right? Otherwise, that's the incremental value which we should create for each other, right? So with that, thanks a lot, and I'm sure that you will, kind of provide me the feedback, and
Yes,
I'm looking forward to engage with all of you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.